morning and welcome to Wednesday of Holy Week. We've now reached the middle of Jesus' last week, the days that Jesus and his disciples spent in and around Jerusalem in the build-up to the annual Passover festival, when the Jewish people remember God's rescue of his people from 400 years of slavery in Egypt. And events which after this week will come to be used to remember God's second great rescue of his people, Easter people from all nations. Wednesday starts with Mark telling his readers that now, 2 days before Passover, the leading priests and religious leaders, those who collaborated with the Romans, were still looking for an opportunity to capture Jesus and secretly kill him. Jesus had challenged them and questioned their authority. Also, they were probably fearful that the people's support for Jesus might lead to unrest, riots, and revolt. They were nervous, feeling threatened, and perhaps running scared. But at this point, Jesus isn't in Jerusalem. He's in nearby Bethany, just a few miles outside the city wall. And whilst eating at the home of Simon, someone who had previously suffered from leprosy and who presumably had been cured by Jesus, a woman walks up to Jesus, breaks a jar of expensive perfume and pours it over Jesus' head. Some of those eating with Jesus were upset. What a waste, they said. Surely it would have been better to have sold the perfume. It was worth a year's wages, Mark tells us. Better to sell it and give the money to the poor. Seems reasonable comment. But Jesus says, this woman has done a good thing. She has anointed my body for burial ahead of its time, Jesus says. Bodies were prepared for burial using oils and spices, and Jesus suggests that this anointing was in some way preparing Jesus' body for burial in just a couple of days' time, or an acknowledgement, a sign that Jesus' death was imminent. Anointing was also something that happened when people were appointed as kings, and this anointing could also be seen as a confirmation of Jesus as king. In a similar way to his arriving on a donkey into Jerusalem signalled his kingship 3 days previously. As I said, some were annoyed by this action. And it would appear that Judas was one of them. It seems for him to have been the final straw. Judas was one of those looking to get rid of the Romans, to overthrow them, and willing to use force if necessary to do that. Judas probably thought that's what Jesus was going to do, to replace Roman rule with God's rule. And in one sense he was, but not in the way Judas hoped. Jesus had been talking about dying, not what Judas wanted to hear. Judas had heard Jesus say again here that he wasn't going to be around to get rid of the Romans. And that, along with the statement that Jesus made here about the poor always being around, it's in Mark 14 verse 7, probably made up Judas's mind that this wasn't going how he had hoped it would, and he may as well hasten events and make some money out of it at the same time. Judas goes to the leading priests and offers to betray Jesus, for which he's promised financial reward. And there Mark leaves the Wednesday of Holy Week. What can we say about these events? What can they teach us? Perhaps something about generosity and expectations. How can we express generosity during this period of lockdown? What are we expecting from God during this time of lockdown? For God to make it all go away, to end it quickly, sort out the mess which, frankly, we've got ourselves into, or for God to be with us as we go through this testing time, and for God to teach us about what's really important and what his rule and reign, his kingdom of justice and peace, Jesus' passion, is really about. And what it really means, not just to survive, but to flourish. And that flourishing may prove to be rather different to what we've taken flourishing to be in the past, particularly in the first world. Thank you for listening. Tomorrow we'll be looking at the events of Thursday of Holy Week. For now, stay safe, stay well, and may you know God's peace and wholeness, his shalom, throughout this time of testing.